Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Here are the stories we're following today.
Karen, we begin once again with the arrest of a suspect accused of murdering United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson on a Manhattan street. Let's get the very latest now with Bloomberg's John Tucker. John.
Good morning, Nathan. The drama surrounding the intense manhunt for the suspected shooter, 26-year-old Luigi Mangione, has now morphed into a legal drama over his extradition from Pennsylvania to New York. He's fighting it. As he was led into the Blair County Courthouse, he yelled to reporters,
completely out of touch and an insult to the intelligence of the American people.
Mangione has a defense attorney. Thomas Dickey says his client intends to plead not guilty to all charges.
We're going to use the process and use the Constitution and the rights that are available to any one of us in this room and any American citizen or person charged with a crime.
Well, fighting extradition buys him time. He may gain some discovery by forcing authorities to show what probable cause or evidence they have. Police have already said that evidence includes written admissions about the crime. Meantime, in the weeks leading up to the killing, friends and family worried about the accused shooter. ABC tracked down a former roommate in Hawaii who says Mangione struggled with a back injury.
The severity of his back issue was such that it was very difficult to have physical relationships with women.
Mangione also posted about brain fog and sciatica, at one point writing, "It's absolutely brutal to have such a life-halting issue." While the extradition battle unfolds, Altoona police say some threats have been made against their officers. The deputy police chief, Derek Swope, said this is clearly a very polarized case. In New York, I'm John Tucker, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, John, thank you. Well, we want to turn now to the latest developments in the Middle East. Israel has increased its attacks on military sites in Syria. The Israeli military claims the strikes are to prevent strategic weapons from falling into the hands of terrorists. We get more from Bloomberg Middle East correspondent Jumana Bersetchi.
It's been an extremely intense military campaign that started right after the regime fell. The Israeli Air Force has now said that they've launched more than 300 raids in various parts of Syria, so not specific to Damascus. They've been striking most of the strategic weapon stockpiles. They've also targeted Navy facilities, Air Force, airfields, weapons production sites, even naval vessels as well. We're hearing off the coast of Latakia. The IDF estimate that they've actually managed to eliminate 70 to 80% of Syria's entire military capabilities.
Bloomberg Middle East correspondent Jumana Bersetchi says Israel is wary of the opposition groups that brought down Bashar al-Assad's government. The rebels are led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, an Islamist group originally affiliated with al-Qaeda.
Now, Karen, let's get to the latest on the Trump transition. President-elect Donald Trump has made more key appointments, including Andrew Ferguson to lead the Federal Trade Commission. We get more from Bloomberg's Doug Krisner.
Ferguson is one of two Republican members on the FTC, so his appointment will not require Senate confirmation. The chair of the agency is a politically charged role currently held by Lina. Now, Ferguson joined the FTC in April, and he has dissented from several of Khan's rulemaking efforts, including a ban on non-compete clauses in employment contracts and rules making it easier to cancel subscriptions. Now, Ferguson will have to navigate between competing interests within the GOP. On one side, populist regulatory hawks, and on the other, establishment conservatives in business groups. In New York, I'm Doug Krisner, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, Doug, thank you. Well, along with the FTC pick, President-elect Trump has filled several more diplomatic posts. He's named Ronald Johnson as his ambassador to Mexico. Johnson served as ambassador to El Salvador in Trump's first term. The president-elect has also tapped Colony Capital founder Tom Barrack to be his ambassador to Turkey. And Scott Bessent, Trump's pick to serve as Treasury Secretary, is planning to meet with several Republican senators today as he continues to build support for his nomination.
Turning to markets now, Karen. The dollar is strengthening. On a report, Chinese leaders are considering allowing their currency to weaken as they brace for higher tariffs under a second Trump presidency. Meanwhile, stocks have fallen for two straight sessions. Peter Cheer, head of macro strategy at Academy Securities, says stocks are at lofty levels.
I do think we were a little bit over our skis again. It's very hard to get a big sell-off. I think in December, seasonality tends to be good. But I do see a lot of froth building up in the market. I think people have also become overly complacent on Trump. I think they forget that he likes chaos. And now that everyone's decided, oh, these are all just negotiating ploys with China, we're set up for a little bit of failure as we see real friction emerge.
Academy Securities' Peter Cheer notes the S&P 500 is up more than 26% so far this year.
Well, Nathan, the direction of the markets today and next week's Fed decision may be impacted by a key economic reading this morning. At 8:30 a.m. Wall Street time, we get the latest reading on inflation with the Consumer Price Index for November. We get a preview with Bloomberg's Michael McKee.
Headline inflation is forecast to have ticked up in November. Will that derail a Fed rate cut next week? Probably not. The Fed will be most interested in the composition of inflation. The largest contributor to higher prices is housing, and it's not getting any cheaper. The question is, will the rate of increase slow? Used car prices are also expected up, a question of demand. Used car sales, and therefore prices, tend to rise after natural disasters like October's hurricanes. Also on watch, auto insurance. All things a Fed rate cut likely won't influence. Michael McKee, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, Mike, thanks. Several companies are in the news this morning, including SpaceX. The value of Elon Musk's rocket company has jumped to about $350 billion. That's because, according to an email to employees seen by Bloomberg, investors have agreed to purchase as much as $1.25 billion of SpaceX common shares at $185 apiece. Sources tell us that share price is up from the $112 established during a previous valuation as of late September.
Well, Nathan, one of Musk's competitors and another one of his other businesses is making a strategic move. General Motors is shutting down its Cruise robotaxi program, citing high development costs and reputational risks. GM invested more than $9 billion in Cruise and at one point rivaled Google parent Alphabet's Waymo for robotaxi supremacy in San Francisco and other cities. Both Alphabet and Tesla have trillion-dollar market caps that dwarf GM's $58 billion valuation.
No, Karen, Kroger may have to shop for a new takeover target. A federal judge has blocked the supermarket chain's $24.6 billion acquisition of Albertsons. The judge found the takeover would lessen competition for grocery shoppers. Kroger rose more than 5% on the news, while Albertsons fell 2.3%.
And Nathan, U.S. Steel dropped almost 10%. Sources say President Biden plans to formally block the $14.1 billion sale of the company to Nippon Steel on national security grounds. The fate of the once fabled U.S. steelmaker has become a hot political issue since the company reached an agreement to be taken over by its Japanese suitor almost a year ago. U.S. Steel has said the deal represents a lifeline and warned it may move its headquarters out of Pennsylvania and shutter some operations if the merger collapses. Time now for a look at some of the other stories making news in New York and around the world. And for that, we're joined by Bloomberg's Michael Barr. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. The Marine veteran who choked a volatile, mentally ill man on a New York subway is speaking about the incident. Daniel Penny, recently acquitted of criminally negligent homicide, says he couldn't have lived with himself if he hadn't acted. Penny put Jordan Neely in a chokehold for about 6 minutes after Neely had an outburst that frightened riders on a subway car.
He was just threatening to kill people. He was threatening to go to jail forever, go to jail for the rest of his life. And now where I'm on the ground with him, I'm on my back in a very vulnerable position.
Daniel Penny spoke to Fox News. Meanwhile, scores of New Yorkers protested the trial outcome last evening. About 20,000 residents in Malibu, California, are under evacuation orders and alerts as a fire burning near the city now spans more than 4 square miles and remains 0% contained. Los Angeles County Fire Chief Anthony Marone says more than 1,500 firefighters have been assigned to fight the blaze.
Over 13 federal, state, and local agency aircraft were assigned to the fire, and a number of those aerial resources will remain flying throughout the night.
Chief Marone says a few homes have been burned and damaged, but the exact number is not yet known. Former Defense Minister Kim Jong-un attempted to kill himself in South Korea, but failed to do so. Kim tried to kill himself at a detention center in Seoul. Kim was arrested earlier today after a Seoul court approved a warrant for him on allegations of playing a key role in a rebellion and committing abuse of power. He became the first person arrested over the short-lived martial law decree earlier this month. Kim is said now to be in stable condition. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Michael Barr, and this is Bloomberg, Karen.
All right, Michael Barr, thank you. now for the Bloomberg Sports Update. It's brought to you by Tri-State Audi. Here's John Stashower. John, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. The Yankees are willing to pay Juan Soto about $48 million a year, and obviously they are now not doing that, so they've got money to spend elsewhere. And they have added a frontline starting pitcher. Max Fried, over his last 5 seasons with Atlanta, had the second lowest ERA in the majors among starters. The Yanks are giving Fried an 8-year contract that takes him to age 38. It's for $218 million. That's the most ever for a lefty. As for their offense, help could come in a possible trade with the Cardinals for 8-time All-Star, 10-time Gold Glove winning third baseman Nolan Arenado. His agent was given permission to seek a deal, and the Yanks said to be among the teams interested. With Soto on the Mets, does that mean Pete Alonso will not re-sign? Mets general manager David Stern spoke with SNY.
We love Pete, and we've been consistent about that throughout. Pete's a really good Met, and we'll see where the offseason goes. I'm not going to make any predictions, but we understand what Pete has meant to our franchise, and we're going to see how the rest of the offseason plays out.
One other signing last night, Texas is keeping starter Nathan Eovaldi. NBA Cup quarterfinals, Milwaukee got 37 points from Giannis Antetokounmpo, beat Orlando 114-109. 39 points for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Oklahoma City's 118-104 win over Dallas. So the Bucks and Thunder advance to Saturday's semifinals in Las Vegas, and the Knicks hoping to join them. They need to beat Atlanta tonight at the Garden. Rangers play tonight in Buffalo. Blue Shirts lost only 4 of their first 17 games. They've dropped 8 of their last 10. Islanders last night lost to the Kings 3-1. Devils lost 2-1 in overtime to Toronto. Bruins lost in Winnipeg 8-1. College hoops at the Garden. Tennessee now ranked number 1. First time in 6 years, and the Vols went to 9-0. All 9 by double digits. 75-62 over Miami. Also at MSG, Arkansas, now coached by John Calipari, came from 15 down, beat Michigan by 2. Rutgers beat Penn State 80-76. John Stashower, Bloomberg Sports. Karen Nathan.
Coast to coast on Bloomberg Radio, nationwide on Sirius XM, and around the world on Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager. The 5-day manhunt for the suspect in United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson's murder is now a drawn-out legal fight. Luigi Mangione is fighting extradition to New York. His attorney, Thomas Dickey, says he will plead not guilty.
The burden's always on the government, thank God. And that's their burden, and they're going to have to produce some evidence, and we're anxious to see it.
Attorney Thomas Dickey spoke in Altoona, Pennsylvania, where Mangione remains held this morning. And for more, we are joined by Bloomberg News senior editor Bill Ferries. Bill, good morning. Waiving extradition does drag this case out potentially for quite a while, but we've already seen quite a bit of evidence against Luigi Mangione. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, I think Mangione and his attorney are going to try to slow this process down. I mean, we got used to this, this 5-day manhunt where things were happening every day. We were getting little kind of drip feeds of evidence and some news about where Mangione, the alleged suspect here, was moving around, where he was going, what he had on him. But yeah, this is going to slow down considerably in the coming weeks as he fights that extradition. We have seen police reports have put out some evidence so far. They say they found basically a ghost gun and a silencer suppressor that appear to have been 3D printed. He did have some sort of a manifesto against the health insurance industry on him, and I think we've seen some brief excerpts of that, and I'm sure more will be coming. And of course, just to initially investigate this crime, there was a considerable amount of use of, looking at CCTV videotapes from around New York City, including all the way to the bus station. Still a lot of questions in this case, but fighting that extradition gives Mangione a chance to perhaps look for a stronger legal team in New York, if that's what he wants to do. And it also allows him to avoid going into Rikers Island prison right now, which is most likely where he would be sent if he waived extradition and went to New York.
So a lot of questions still to be answered, Bill, but I think one of the biggest questions for many people watching this case is, how does someone with the kind of privileged background that Luigi Mangione has wind up being a suspect in a Midtown Manhattan murder?
Yeah, that's going to be a huge part of this. Just kind of, how do you evolve from one to the other there? He went to, obviously, one of the most elite schools in the country, Gilman School in Baltimore, University of Pennsylvania. He even taught a class for summer high school students at Stanford University in AI. So a really shocking change. There's been a lot of digging into his social media profile, some questions about whether maybe he had chronic back pain as a result of some kind of a surfing accident or other sports accident, and whether, that may be linked to his complaints or frustrations about the insurance industry. That, I think, those are the kind of things that I expect to see coming out in the weeks ahead as he fights extradition and perhaps makes prosecutors release a little bit more information about what they've collected in the last week or so.
And in our last 30 seconds, Bill, this has really sent a shudder through the health insurance industry, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. I think you're seeing all the frustrations that a lot of people have about the cost of health care and claims being denied. I think that's turning up in some of the support you're seeing for Mangione, saying he's supporting this kind of vigilante action that Governor Shapiro in Pennsylvania and others have been speaking out against.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak, your morning podcast on the stories making news from Wall Street to Washington and beyond.
Look for us on your podcast feed by 6 a.m. Eastern each morning on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else you listen.
You can also listen live each morning starting at 5 a.m. Wall Street time on Bloomberg 1130 in New York, Bloomberg 99.1 in Washington, Bloomberg 92.9 in Boston, and nationwide on Sirius XM Channel 121.
Plus, listen coast to coast on the Bloomberg Business app, now with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto interfaces.
And don't forget to subscribe to Bloomberg News Now. It's the latest news whenever you want it, in 5 minutes or less. Search Bloomberg News Now on your favorite podcast platform to stay informed all day long. I'm Karen Moscow.
And I'm Nathan Hager. Join us again tomorrow morning for all the news you need to start your day right here on Bloomberg Daybreak.